Part 4. Escape and Resolution. If you are yet to watch the first 3 parts of this video, follow the link in the pinned comment below so you can connect the story from the beginning.
This is my story. I'm Jane, a waitress at Marty's Diner, whose act of kindness turned her life around in an unexpected and dramatic way by a beggarly-looking old man whom she served. I sit in the back of the patrol car with my hands clasped so tight my knuckles have gone white, hard hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird trying to break free. The vinyl seat beneath me is cracked and worn smooth by countless other people who found themselves in this exact position, suspected, accused, defeated by circumstances beyond their control. Through the rain-streaked window, I watch Marty's Diner flicker in and out of existence as the neon sign struggles against the storm's electrical assault. Each flash illuminates the scene like a photographer's strobe, the empty parking lot, the police car's emergency lights painting everything in harsh reds and blues, the diner itself looking like a ship taking on water in a sea of broken dreams. Officer Mendez sits in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing back at me through the metal mesh that separates the front of the car from the rear. Her expression is unreadable in the dashboard's green glow, but I catch something in her eyes that might be doubt, or maybe just professional detachment. Officer Holt drives with the mechanical precision of someone who's done this 1,000 times before, his windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the storm's fury. My uniform clings to my skin, soaked through and cold, carrying the smell of grease and desperation that I'll probably never wash out completely. The silver locket my mother gave me presses against my chest, a small weight that feels heavier than it should, a reminder of everything I've failed to protect, everyone I've failed to help, including myself. They haven't read me my rights yet, which either means I'm not under arrest or they're planning to do this the hard way. Either possibility terrifies me. I've never been in trouble with the law, never even had a speeding ticket, but I know enough to understand that innocence and justice aren't always the same thing. The radio crackles with static and distant voices, other officers dealing with other emergencies on this storm-soaked night. I catch fragments of conversation about traffic accidents and power outages, the normal chaos that follows severe weather. Somewhere out there, real criminals are probably taking advantage of the darkness and confusion, while I sit here accused of stealing tip money from a diner that barely makes enough profit to keep the lights on. Ms. Alvarez, Officer Mendez says, turning in her seat to face me, "We're going to take you to the station for questioning. You have the right to." A figure steps out of the shadows beside the diner, moving with the careful precision of someone navigating treacherous ground. At first, I think it's just another customer leaving late, maybe someone who was in the restroom during all the chaos. But there's something familiar about the silhouette, something that makes my breath catch in my throat. The figure approaches the patrol car with measured steps, and as he passes under the one functioning streetlight, I see him clearly for the first time since this nightmare began. Harold Martin stands in the rain, but he's not the bedraggled vagrant who stumbled into Marty's Diner hours ago. His posture is straight, his movements confident, and he's wearing a dry overcoat that looks expensive even in the storm's harsh light. The transformation is so complete it's like looking at a different person entirely. But it's him. I'd recognize those intelligent eyes anywhere, the same eyes that held mine across a crowded diner while Chuck Warren tried to intimidate him into leaving. The same eyes that watched me make the choice to defend him, to risk my job and my financial security for the sake of basic human dignity. Officer Holt rolls down his window as Harold approaches, rain immediately spattering the interior of the patrol car. "Sir, you need to step back. This is police business." Harold pulls out a leather wallet and shows something to Holt, an ID or badge that I can't see from my position in the back seat. Whatever it is, it has an immediate effect. Holt's entire demeanor changes, his authoritative tone melting into something approaching deference. "I'm Harold Martin," the man says, his voice carrying clearly despite the storm's noise. "Owner of the Martin Restaurant Group. I believe you have one of my employees in custody." The words hit me like a physical blow. Owner? The Martin Restaurant Group? The man I defended, the vagrant I risked everything to help, owns the company that runs Marty's Diner and probably dozens of others across the region. Officer Mendez turns to stare at me through the mesh, her expression shifting from professional neutrality to something approaching amazement. "Ma'am, did you know who this man was?" I shake my head, still trying to process what I'm hearing. Harold Martin. The name should have meant something to me. I've seen it on corporate communications, policy memos, the occasional motivational poster in the employee break room. But I never connected the executive signature with the flesh and blood person, never imagined that the owner of the company would walk into his own establishment looking like someone who hadn't had a decent meal in weeks. Harold approaches my window, bending slightly to meet my eyes through the rain-streaked glass. His smile is gentle, almost apologetic, but there's something else there too. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. "Hello, Janet," he says. "I think we need to talk." Officer Holt gets out of the car and opens my door, the sound of the storm immediately filling the vehicle's interior. Cold wind and rain assault me as I climb out, my soaked sneakers squelching against the asphalt. I'm standing in the middle of a nightmare that's somehow become even more surreal, facing the man whose dignity I defended without knowing I was defending my own boss. "I don't understand," I manage, my voice barely audible over the storm's roar. I thought. "You thought I was homeless," Harold says, his tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. "Desperate. Someone who needed help but couldn't pay for it. You were right about the first two things." He gestures toward the officers, both of whom are watching our interaction with the fascination of people witnessing something unprecedented. Officers Mendez and Holt aren't actually with the local police department. They're part of my private security team, very talented actors, I might add. This was the final phase of an integrity test I've been conducting at several of my establishments. The words tumble around in my mind like dice in a cup, but I can't make them add up to anything that makes sense. Integrity test, private security, actors. "You mean the theft accusation was fabricated," Harold confirms. "Part of a scenario. I needed to see how you'd react under pressure, how you'd behave when your kindness was not only unrewarded but actively punished." Lightning illuminates the scene in harsh white light, and for a moment I can see everything with perfect clarity. The patrol car that isn't really a patrol car, the officers who aren't really officers, Harold Martin standing in the rain like some benevolent deity who's been testing mortals for their moral courage. "The phone call," Officer Mendez says, stepping forward with something approaching sheepishness. "The anonymous tip about the theft ring. That was me. I made it from the parking lot while you were dealing with the kitchen window incident." I stare at her, remembering her earlier words about the caller's voice trembling, about how it sounded like they were testing something. She was telling me the truth, even while she was lying, giving me clues to the real nature of what was happening. "Victor Kane," I say, the name coming out is barely more than a whisper. "The photographer." Harold nods. "My documentation specialist. He was recording your interactions throughout the evening, capturing evidence of how you treated a customer you believed was destitute. The photo that appeared on Frank's phone was sent remotely. We needed to increase the pressure, see how you'd respond when the stakes got higher. The pieces are falling into place now, forming a picture so elaborate it takes my breath away. Every strange incident tonight, the kitchen window that opened by itself, the mysterious photograph, the convenient police arrival, it was all choreographed, all designed to test something in me that I didn't even know was being evaluated. But why? I ask. Why go to all this trouble? Why put me through? I gesture helplessly at the scene around us, the patrol car and the storm and the wreckage of what I thought was my life. Why make me think I was losing everything? Harold's expression grows serious, and for a moment he looks exactly like the weary old man who sat in booth 7, nursing coffee and absorbing the hostility of strangers. Because kindness is easy when it costs nothing, Janet. Real character reveals itself when doing the right thing requires sacrifice. Thunder crashes overhead, punctuating his words with the storm's approval. Rain continues to soak through my uniform, but I barely feel it anymore. Everything that's happened tonight is being rewritten in my mind. Not a nightmare of false accusations and lost employment, but some kind of elaborate job interview that I somehow passed without knowing I was taking it. The other employees, Harold continues, raising his voice to be heard over the wind. Frank, Chuck, even some of the customers, they were all part of the test. We needed to create an authentic scenario where your natural impulses would be revealed. I think about Frank's immediate readiness to blame me, Chuck's escalating aggression, the way the other customers turned against me so quickly. It all felt so real because it was real. These people genuinely believed what they were saying and doing. Only I was unaware that I was being evaluated. Frank really thought I was stealing, I realize. Frank was told that corporate suspected employee theft and that he should watch for suspicious behavior, Harold confirms. He was never told you were the subject of investigation, but when the opportunity arose, his own prejudices and insecurities led him to the conclusion we knew he'd reach. The cruelty of it takes my breath away. Frank's genuine anger and suspicion, Chuck's malicious glee at my downfall, the way the other customers turned away from me, none of it was performance. These people really believed I was a thief, really wanted to see me punished. The test wasn't just about my integrity, it was about revealing everyone else's character too. And Chuck! Harold's expression darkens. Mr. Warren revealed himself to be exactly the kind of person I suspected he was. He'll be asked to find somewhere else to eat his meals and drink his coffee. A black sedan pulls into the parking lot, its headlights cutting through the storm like twin searchlights. The car is expensive, corporate, the kind of vehicle that suggests serious money and serious business. It parks beside the patrol car, and I watch as Frank Doyle emerges from the diner, his bulk silhouetted against the emergency lighting. He approaches us with the confident stride of a man who thinks he's about to be vindicated, his grease-stained shirt and cheap tie marking him as management, but not upper management. When he sees Harold, his expression shifts from satisfaction to confusion. "Who's this?" Frank asks, his voice carrying over the storm's noise. "Sir, you need to step back. We're dealing with a theft situation here." Harold turns to face him, and I watch Frank's confusion deepen as he tries to reconcile this well-dressed stranger with the bedraggled vagrant from earlier in the evening. "Mr. Doyle," Harold says, his voice carrying the kind of authority that makes people stand straighter despite themselves. "I'm Harold Martin, owner of the Martin Restaurant Group. I believe you've met me before, though under different circumstances." Frank's face goes through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally a kind of sick understanding. His mouth opens and closes soundlessly as he processes the implications of what he's just learned. But you were the old man," Frank stammers, his confident demeanor crumbling like wet cardboard. "Was me." "Yes," Harold confirms. "I've been conducting integrity assessments at various locations, and tonight was Marty's turn. I have to say, Mr. Doyle, your performance was quite revealing." Benny Lopez emerges from the diner, his Red Sox cap still somehow perched on his head despite the night's chaos. He looks around at the scene, the fancy sedan, the police officers who aren't police officers, Harold Martin in his expensive overcoat, and his weathered face breaks into a grin. "I knew it," he says, loud enough to be heard over the storm. "I knew there was something different about tonight. Janet, you okay?" I nod, though I'm not sure okay begins to describe what I'm feeling. Relief, confusion, anger, gratitude. They're all swirling together in my chest like competing storms. More people emerge from the diner now, drawn by curiosity or concern or simple boredom. Mrs. Chin appears in the doorway, clutching her purse and peering out at us through the rain. The teenage couple hovers near the entrance, their young faces bright with fascination at this unexpected drama. Even Chuck Warren shows up, his bulk filling the doorway as he surveys the scene with the suspicious expression of a man who senses his worldview is about to be challenged. When he sees Harold, his small eyes narrow with something approaching recognition. "That's him," Chuck says, pointing a thick finger in Harold's direction. "That's the bum who was trying to scam the place." Harold turns to address Chuck directly, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. "Mr. Warren, I'm Harold Martin, owner of this establishment and several others. I've been observing your behavior tonight, and I have to say I'm deeply disappointed. Chuck's face cycles through the same expressions Frank's did: confusion, recognition, and growing horror as the implications sink in. But you can't be, I mean. I can and I am, Harold says simply. Your treatment of what you perceived as a vulnerable person revealed a great deal about your character, none of it flattering. You are no longer welcome in any of my establishments. Chuck's mouth works soundlessly for a moment before he finds his voice. You can't do that. I'm a regular customer. I got rights. You have the right to take your business elsewhere, Harold replies. I suggest you exercise it. Chuck looks around for support, but finds none. Even Frank, despite his own precarious position, won't meet his eyes. The other customers study the ground or the storm clouds, anywhere but Chuck's face. He's been revealed as the bully he always was, and no one wants to be associated with that now. With a final glare that promises future trouble, Chuck stalks back into the diner, probably to collect his jacket and whatever dignity he has left. I watch him go with a mixture of satisfaction and pity. Satisfaction because justice has been served, pity because his small, cruel world just got a little smaller. Harold turns back to me, his expression gentle despite the storm raging around us. Janet, I owe you an apology. The test required deception, but that doesn't make the emotional cost any less real. You've been through something genuinely traumatic tonight, and I take full responsibility for that. I thought I was losing everything, I admit, my voice barely steady. My job, my future, maybe even my freedom. I stop, unable to finish the sentence. You thought that doing the right thing had destroyed your life, Harold completes. That kindness was a luxury you couldn't afford. That moral courage was just another form of stupidity. I nod, because it's exactly what I was thinking as I sat in that patrol car, watching my world collapse around me. The eviction notice in my purse, Mom's medical bills, the crushing weight of financial desperation, it all seemed to prove that goodness was just another word for naivety. But you still did it, Harold continues. Even knowing it might cost you everything, you chose compassion over self-preservation. You defended someone you thought couldn't help themselves, stood up to a bully who could hurt you, risked your job for the sake of basic human dignity. That's not stupidity, Janet. That's leadership. Leadership. The word hangs in the air between us, weighty with implications I'm not sure I'm ready to understand. Victor Kane emerges from the black sedan, no longer the mysterious photographer who vanished into the storm, but clearly an employee attending to business. He approaches Harold with a tablet in his hands, its screen protected from the rain by some kind of waterproof case. Everything's documented, Victor reports. Full video record of the evening's events, audio recordings of all interactions, complete behavioral analysis ready for review. Harold accepts the tablet and scrolls through whatever data it contains, his expression thoughtful. The rain continues to fall, but it seems less violent now, as if the storm is beginning to exhaust itself. Frank, Harold says, his voice cutting through the weather's noise. We need to discuss your future with the company. Frank approaches with the hesitant steps of a man walking toward his own execution. His face is pale, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. Mr. Martin and I can explain. I'm sure you can, Harold interrupts. But first, let me explain something to you. Tonight's events revealed significant problems with the management culture at this location. Your immediate assumption that Janet was guilty, your willingness to dock her pay without evidence, your general attitude toward both employees and customers, all of this suggests that you're not the right person to lead this establishment. Frank's face crumples like old paper. Please, Mr. Martin. I need this job. I got a mortgage, kids in school. You'll receive a severance package commensurate with your years of service, Harold says, not unkindly but firmly. And I'll provide a reference that focuses on your technical skills rather than your management style. But your time at Marty's is over. The finality in his voice leaves no room for argument. Frank nods miserably and trudges back toward the diner, probably to clean out his office and figure out how to explain this to his wife. Harold turns back to me, and for the first time since the surreal evening began, he smiles. Not the polite smile of a customer or the grim smile of someone enduring hardship, but the genuine expression of someone who's genuinely pleased with what they've discovered. Janet, I'd like to offer you Frank's position. Manager of Marty's Diner, with a significant salary increase and full benefits package. You've proven tonight that you have the character and judgment necessary to lead people, to make difficult decisions under pressure, and to maintain your integrity when it would be easier to compromise. Manager. The word echoes in my mind like a bell ringing in an empty church. 2 hours ago, I was a waitress worried about paying rent, and now I'm being offered the position of the man who just fired me, or tried to anyway. I don't know what to say. I stammer. Say yes. Benny calls out from the diner's doorway. Hell, Janet, you've been running this place anyway. Might as well get paid for it. Harold laughs, a sound that seems to push back the darkness and the storm. Benny's not wrong. I've been reviewing the operational reports, and this location's performance has been steadily improving over the past year. Frank took credit for it, but the real improvements correlate directly with your increased responsibilities and influence. I think about all the times I stayed late to help with inventory, covered shifts for sick coworkers, mediated disputes between staff members, suggested menu changes and operational improvements. I never thought of it as management. I just saw problems that needed solving and did what I could to solve them. There's more, Harold continues, raising his voice to be heard as the wind picks up again. I'm planning to open a new flagship location downtown, 3 times the size of this place, full-service restaurant with bar, catering capabilities, the works. It's going to be the centerpiece of our expansion into upscale dining. He pauses, letting the words sink in. I need someone to oversee the project from conception to opening, someone who understands both the operational side and the human element of restaurant management. I need a regional operations head who can work with architects and contractors and suppliers, but who never forgets that we're in the business of serving people. Regional operations head. The title is so far beyond anything I've ever imagined for myself that it doesn't seem real. A few hours ago, I was counting tip money and trying to figure out how to make rent. Now I'm being offered a position that would change not just my financial situation, but my entire future. Why me? I ask. I mean, I appreciate the offer, but I don't have a college degree. I don't have management experience. You're just someone who risked her job to defend a stranger's dignity, Harold interrupts. Someone who stood up to a bully twice her size because it was the right thing to do. Someone who maintained her integrity under pressure and her compassion in the face of hostility. Those aren't things you learn in business school, Janet. Those are things you either have or you don't. The storm is definitely weakening now. The rain has shifted from a driving assault to steady precipitation, and the wind no longer howls with quite the same fury. Lightning still flickers in the distance, but the thunder that follows is muted, like the voice of a giant growing hoarse. I need an answer, Harold says gently. Not tonight. This has been overwhelming enough already. But soon. The flagship project is moving forward, and I need the right person leading it. I look around at the scene, the diner where I've spent 2 years learning what I thought was just a job, the people who've been my co-workers and customers and occasional tormentors, the storm that's been the backdrop for the most surreal night of my life. Everything is the same, but everything has changed. I'll think about it, I say finally. I need to process all of this. Harold nods understandingly. Of course. Take whatever time you need. In the meantime, you're still an employee in good standing with full pay and benefits. And as of tomorrow morning, you're the interim manager of this location while we begin the search for Frank's replacement. Unless, of course, you decide you want the position permanently. Victor Kane approaches with a folder in his hands, protecting it from the rain under his jacket. Paperwork, he explains, offering it to Harold. Severance documents, promotional paperwork, the whole package. Harold accepts the folder and hands it to me. Your new employment contract, salary information, benefits package, everything you need to make an informed decision. There's also a bonus in there, compensation for tonight's ordeal. You've earned it, I take the folder with hands that are steadier than they have any right to be, given everything that's happened. The weight of it feels significant, like I'm holding not just papers but possibilities, futures I never imagined for myself. The black sedan's engine starts, a quiet purr that seems almost respectful of the night's drama. Victor Kane climbs into the driver's seat while Harold moves toward the passenger door. "One last thing," Harold says, turning back to face me. "What happened here tonight? Your kindness, your courage, your integrity, that wasn't a fluke or a lucky guess. That was character revealing itself under pressure. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise." He pauses at the car door, looking back at the diner and the people still gathered in its doorway. "I've been in this business for 30 years, Janet. I've seen thousands of employees, hundreds of managers, dozens of executives. Real leadership is rare. Don't waste it." The sedan pulls away into the storm, its taillights disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness like red stars being swallowed by clouds. I watch until they're gone, then turn back toward the diner where my former coworkers, my current employees, I guess, are waiting. Benny grins at me from the doorway, his red socks cap somehow still perfectly positioned despite everything that's happened. "So, boss," he says, "what's the first order of business?" I look down at the folder in my hands, at the diner behind him, at the storm-washed street that suddenly seems full of possibilities instead of obstacles. The eviction notice in my purse, wherever that ended up, no longer feels like a death sentence. Mom's medical bills don't seem quite so impossible. The future, which looked so dark just minutes ago, has suddenly become brighter than I ever dared imagine. "First," I say, my voice stronger than it's been all night, "we clean up this mess. Then we figure out how to run a diner properly." Benny laughs, a sound that cuts through the storm's diminishing fury. "Yes, ma'am. But Janet..." "Yeah, we already been running it properly. We just gonna get paid better for it now." I look up at the neon sign, still flickering but somehow more determined than desperate now, its pink glow reflecting off the wet pavement like a promise written in light. The storm is passing, the power's beginning to flicker back on in buildings down the street, and I'm standing in the rain with a job offer that will change my life. "Guess the house special really is life-changing," I say, laughing despite everything that's happened, despite the cold and the wet and the emotional whiplash of the past few hours. Just didn't know it came with a promotion. Thunder rumbles in the distance, but it sounds different now. Not threatening, but approving, like the storm itself is applauding this unexpected turn of events. The rain keeps falling, but it feels cleaner somehow, washing away the old assumptions and fears and limitations that held me back. I'm Janet Alvarez, waitress turned manager, defender of dignity, believer in kindness even when it costs everything. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, the future looks bright enough to be worth reaching for. The storm is ending. The real journey is just beginning. What began as a potential loss becomes a life-altering reward. Janet's simple choice, to treat someone with dignity when no one else would, proves that empathy can transform not just a single moment, but the entire trajectory of a life.
Enjoyed the story? If heartwarming true stories and surprising twists inspire you, don't miss the next one. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you'll be the first to know whenever we share a new life-changing story. Your support helps us bring you even more inspiring content that restores faith in kindness and humanity.